Yay. Okay. So, welcome everybody. So today we've got a couple of topics. The uh, the first one is Cliff is going to talk about how he has successfully got images from the space station and via his yellow radio and decoded them. So he's going to talk about that. And and then I'll do a quick rundown on the two exercises that were done in October, the Great Shakeout and IronOR 24. So we'll talk about that. So Cliff, do you want to take it away?
Sure, sure. I don't know how many of you have messed with slow scan television imaging. Uh, so a lot of what I say, you can, after I get all done, you can correct it. Please do. Um, I kind of am a latecomer to this whole process and just found out about the International Space Station's playing and dabbling in this field in October. And so it turned out 1 week in October, they dedicated the amateur radio station on the space station to transmitting these images. Apparently, they've been doing it for a few years, but this was my first awareness of it. It's all done on the 2 meter band. And I knew that my yellow radio could dial in all the most of the frequencies in that band. And so, sure enough, there it was when I went to frequency mode. I discovered the 145.8 that I needed. Um, and and so I can say that I did successfully download the images and displayed them, and it all works, at least sort of. And we'll talk about the sort of part too. So, as you can imagine, yellow radios are sort of the bottom end of the device field that could actually do this. But the big trick for me was to figure out when to go listen. So if you think about the space station going around the Earth, here's the Earth, and the orbit's just slightly bigger than that. So if you're sitting here on the surface of the Earth and you're working with 2 meters, we all know it's line of sight. So while the space station goes around about every 90 minutes around the Earth, the period of time that it's actually over our heads is this little slice at the top of the big circle. And that represents about 10 minutes. So you got about a 10-minute window out of 90 that you can actually hear anything at all. Secondly, the Earth is rotating underneath the orbit. And so there's only about 8 hours of the day that you're actually capturing images that you could see, because the rest of the time the Earth's turned where you can't see it. And so in that 8 hour interval, you get about 6 passes. And these passes are 10 minutes long. So you got 6 passes, 10 minutes long over any 24-hour period. The odds of going outside and just listening and expecting to hear anything are pretty slim. So you had to find out when they were occurring. And there's a group, I don't know how many of you are familiar with AMSAT. It stands for Amateur Radio Space something, but it basically is a website that keeps track of all the amateur radio related satellites. And you can find out where they're all located and when they're going to be overhead for you in this application. And so that's where I went. And you put in your latitude and your longitude and your elevation, and it sends back to you the next 10 passes of whatever satellite, in this case, the International Space Station, and gives you the time they're going to arrive above your horizon and the time they're going to drop off your horizon for that pass. And it tells you where it's coming from, what what angle to be thinking about on the horizon as to where it's going to come up and where it's going to set on the other side. So you now know your 10-minute window, and you can go out and set up your radio and listen.
Say, Cliff, do you want me to throw up that page real quick?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so this is an example of it. You can see that I put in my latitude and longitude, but that came right off my phone, by the way, and my elevation, and it pops out this chart, and this gives you the time in UTC. So you got when I did this in October, I had to subtract 7 hours from it. Now I have to subtract 8 in November because the daylight savings time's going away. But you got to kind of get it into your own time zone. But you're going to see here the time of day that it's going to show up. You're going to see the duration in minutes. So that's like 10-minute duration that's going to be there. You can see the angle on the horizon. In this case, that top one is 203 degrees out of 360 degrees. So that's kind of, if you will, northwest horizon. The maximum elevation is an interesting one. That's how high in the sky the arc is actually going to get to, 90 degrees being straight overhead. 20 degrees isn't much. And in fact, I was unable to actually pick up any radio signals when that particular arc was less than about 45 degrees. With my yellow radio, I didn't seem to be able to pick anything up, or very little. Then you'll see the LOS is when it's dropping below the horizon on the other side, and the angle it's at, and then the time that event is going to occur. So this gave me an opportunity. In this case, I would have looked for that second line, which is at about 70 degrees elevation, maximum elevation. That would be a good one to look at for me.
And Cliff, the AOS is acquisition of signal, and LOS is loss of signal, right?
Loss of signal, correct. So it's when it comes up on your horizon and when it drops off. The other thing that's kind of interesting is if you start listening when this tells you to, you won't hear anything, or at least on my yellow radio, I couldn't. Pretty consistently, the first 2 minutes, it was too low in elevation for me to actually hear anything, regardless of how I tried to orient my radio. So I missed the first 2 minutes, and really I missed the last 2 minutes, as I found out by checking. So I've got kind of, instead of this 10-minute interval, I've got maybe 6 minutes of it, and that's my slot. The other thing to be aware of is how these images come across. There are a lot of slow scan television formats out there. The one the space station happens to use is called, I think, the PD, PD120. At any rate, it's a 640 by 480 pixel picture. So it's reasonable resolution. But it takes just over 2 minutes to send one image. So about 2 minutes and 6 seconds or something like that. So I got a 6-minute interval that I get to actually see while it passes. They send a 2-minute image, just a little more. Then they put a 2-minute buffer, no signal at all. And then they start another image and for 2 minutes. If you're really incredibly lucky, you'll get 2 images in 6 minutes. You're never lucky. You get maybe half of one image, then the dead spot, and then you get maybe a whole image and you get a dead spot. But in point of fact, there's almost always a whole image somewhere in your 6-minute window that you have available. So once I got that chart and was able to find out when to go listen, I went and listened to quite a few of them, see what worked and what didn't work. And you know it when you get it. It's really obvious. Have any of you ever heard slow scan images come across in an audio file? It is I'll dig one up here. But when I was doing this, I actually used my phone. If any of you have iPhones, there's the what's the app called? Voice memo.
Voice recorder, I think.
Actually, on mine, it's called voice memo.
Ah, okay.
And so you just start it recording and hold it sort of somewhere in the same vicinity as the speaker of your yellow radio, and it records it. And that's how I was actually saving it. I'll see if I can bring up. Oh, hold on just a second, because you can't hear that because I have hearing aids and it's going directly to my hearing aids. So I'm hearing it real good, but you guys aren't got a shot at it. Let me turn off Bluetooth.
It happens.
I keep forgetting. Okay. We'll try this one more time. That's each scan going through, each line of information. There's about 4 lines a second that show up. So like I say, you know when it's coming. It's pretty obvious when the signal shows up.
And is it a pretty good signal? I mean, it sounds strong.
It does when it's directly overhead. As it's coming up off the horizon, you're digging it out of the noise. And the pictures show it. And but the other thing I found was that rain is not your friend. A heavy overcast rain, like last night, I got an image and it's very, very grainy, very snowy, and it's because it was so terribly overcast last night. I mean, I was protecting it from the rain because I was getting pelted with the rain while I'm out there trying to capture the last image of the week.
So Cliff, do you just hold the radio and?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You start out, because it's coming out of the northwest. That's where it's going to start out. I kind of start out, I found that it works to hold it. You can't see where I'm pointing, but I'm kind of pointing to the southeast with this because it's coming up over my head like this. And you find the sweet spot. You're kind of waiting for the most audio that you can get. And you're kind of flailing it around until you actually hear it. But the start of the image, you're kind of like this. At the end of the image, it's kind of going back over your shoulder because you're still pointing south when you're, I did when I was standing there. So you kind of find that as it's arcing across, you're moving it a little bit, trying to get the maximum signal strength you can. And it's all done based on volume. I don't have any. Yes.
Are there any different antennas that can be used to better acquire the signals?
Oh, absolutely. Now, this is the one that came with it. I've got the longer antenna. I happen to be using it. But if you go, I've since gone on the web and have looked at how people have approached this problem. The guys that are really having fun with it have mobile 2-meter rigs in their cars. They take them out. They've got S meters on them, and they've got a little handheld beam antenna. And literally, while it's arcing across, they're kind of fine-tuning it, trying to hold about an S9 as they're going across the sky through that 10-minute period. So there are better setups for sure. People are using dipoles, little short dipoles for 2 meters on their roofs and getting pretty good success out of that. Straight up verticals don't work quite as well for capturing signals from the sky. But it all works. It's kind of fun.
What about Doppler shift on your receive frequency?
So there is a Doppler shift. It's about plus or minus 3 kilocycles, something like that. It's in the audio range in terms of how much shifts. So almost all, if you had a really, really narrow band, I suppose, FM receiver, you might have a little trouble with it. But with these, we don't seem to have too much trouble. Yeah, there's a good handheld beam. And yeah, that's a perfect example of the
Those can be made by hand too, correct?
That's my understanding. And yeah, they're reporting great great signal strengths coming back from those in particular. I did have a little bit of trouble with electrical noise in my area. I don't know quite where it's coming from, whether it's kind of a noisy router somewhere. I don't know, but I'm out in the street in the middle of the night, kind of walking around. No, none of the neighbors are complaining, mind you, but when we don't have too many dogs in the neighborhood, so they're not complaining. But at the same time, I was walking around trying to find a quiet spot electrically, because I do turn the squelch all the way to 0 on this in order to be able to hear the background noise all the time. And but yeah, I apologize about that phone. It's just going crazy, the beeping at you. Let's see. Just kind of show you some of the images real quick. I think you saw that first one that I got back in October. That was pretty clear skies. And again, my signal is not as strong as some folks get. If you go online, you'll see they get much sharper images than that. But that's an example of it. Another one that I kind of caught midstream. So it gives you an idea. This was last week, actually. And then this is the one I got last night. It's actually a full frame. I caught it with all the header and everything, so the software was able to line it up. Horribly noisy. And last night was the horrible rainstorm and thick clouds and lots of struggle with trying to get as good a signal. Now, in amongst this, you actually hear cars driving by. So, you can appreciate the fact that it's not the best setup. Certainly a better setup. Most of the guys are going directly with their audio from their radio into their PC or whatever device they have without doing the acoustic coupling, if you will, that I did with speakers and so on. So there's lots of ways to improve the quality of the picture. I just haven't chased any of that. Pretty much this scratched most of the itch that I had associated with the subject, but that doesn't mean I won't further.
So Cliff, on the I know you can get the audio interface for the plugs, just like the speaker mics, right? So you can get ones that have, if you put enough adapters together, you can get it directly into the phone.
Absolutely, you can. And the disadvantage of all that is you got to be ready to capture the image at the same time you are capturing the audio. And I was still learning a little bit about the capture program. The one I ended up using is the same one I think you've used, John, MMSSTV. It's downloadable, free of charge. And it does a great job of auto-detecting what format the source is using for their SST or SSTV signal. And it sits there and listens to all the garbage that's coming through, all the static, until the image actually starts, and then it does a good job of capturing just the image for you, isolating it and saving it away for the next image. So it's a pretty smart chunk of software that takes all the real work away from the decoding world.
And you could, and I think I don't. I'm on a Mac. I don't have my phone. It's called MMSSTV on the phone, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Oh, it's called. I think it's called. Mine's CQ SSTV.
There's 4 or 5 of them actually out there. But I thought that the same folks that did it for Windows World had done one for the iOS.
Yeah, let me see if I can get the link for it. Yeah.
it's been it's a lot of fun, and it of course opens up a whole bunch more questions and lots of other things to chase. But that was fun in its own right to see if I could make it happen.
So the one that, let's see if I can actually do this. I haven't done this for a long time.
Can you put it in the chat?
I thought I was able to share my phone.
Can you put it in the chat? The link?
Yeah, so the iOS app that I've used is SSTV slow scan. It's got a CQ SSTV logo thing.
Okay. And that would allow you to just use your phone and not have to use your PC at all. How would you interface to your phone if you wanted to avoid the acoustic coupling?
There are adapters you can get for Lightning and stuff that gets audio right into the phone.
Okay.
But I've done it like you. You just hold the phone and the radio together, and
it works.
And it works. So that we did that in Portland for the CertNet stuff, is that we use an app that you take a picture, and the app superimposes the latitude and longitude on the picture, and then we feed that into the CQ SSTV app. Thank you. And you can transmit. You can use your phone, your handheld, to transmit the image to somebody else. And we were sending it to the EOCs as kind of disaster images and stuff. And it actually, even with the audio coupling, it kind of worked.
Okay.
So,
well, the frequencies that they're using, the audio frequencies are shifting between to get zeros and ones to actually do the transmission, the serial transmission, if you will, is in that 1 to 2 kilohertz range. And so you don't have to have great low-end coupling, if you will, to do any of this. You're not going much below 1,000 hertz. And so the audio range that you can couple by hand isn't going to be compromised too much with that technique.
Yeah.
Cliff, could you hold up your favorite image, the one you really like, and describe it for us? What's in there?
Well, the one actually is my favorite, is one you can't hardly see at all, and that's a picture of the space shuttle. The other images, this particular last week, which, if you will, the 11th through the 18th was their week in November that they were transmitting. They actually had 12 images. And there are guys that had a competition to try and see if they could capture all 12 images through the course of the week. This one has a picture of, I believe it's actually in the space station itself. This one is a guy on the ground who is doing some prep work for the mission. And then the text in there is talking to the issue of this being such and such anniversary of amateur radio on the space station. And there are a couple of languages on that one. So yeah.
So that's the image that you're talking about, right?
It is.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looks like Russian up there.
I believe so. Yes. I don't know so, but I believe so. You can see I was in this memo that I sent to him, I was using my plastic garbage can outside as a table. Since it wasn't metal, I felt I could use it to hold the radio, trying to jockey some other stuff outside. But like I say, it's a lot of fun. It is not, obviously I didn't have to buy a thing to do it. My yellow radio and my phone and my desktop computer were there. There was no software to buy, although there was some to install. The MMSSTV program had to be downloaded and installed. Beyond that,
and it's free, I think.
it is.
So
Yeah.
how do you know, are they constantly downloading images, or do you have to, or is there a time when they download images? How do you know if they're going to download images or just audio?
So I found out about it indirectly. I happen to belong to a blog group out of Texas, and they happen to be talking about it. And that's how I knew to go look. But I believe there is a website that you can go on, and I'll have to look it up again. I'll have to Google it again. That will give you the windows that they're actually transmitting in. I don't know when the next one is. I'm expecting it to happen in December because they use the 2-meter station for other things. You know, you can call them if you want and make communications with the astronauts during they have certain windows for that activity. And,
I track them audibly sometimes with my yellow radio, but I'm on the 437.880 plus the Doppler channels up and down on either one of those, but that's just audio. And there's a website that I track the satellite that tells me the optimal time. I don't do it so much now because I kind of got I don't know, just bored with it after a while. Because like you said, you only get about 6 minutes of, and I've tried to communicate, but and I even built an antenna that would supposedly help me communicate. I just got tired of it. So, but the imaging thing part, I'm curious about.
Okay. If I can, when I find out about the next window of opportunity, I'll post it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah. So, anyway, anybody else have any knowledge of this topic that ought to be brought up?
I still like your collection of stuff in the background.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the sickness.
The only thing, this is Michael, the only thing that I could add, when I was studying for my extra class license, I took a review course that was taught by some folks on the East Coast that John recommended to me. And there was a gentleman from AMSAT who came and spoke one night about talking to the ISS, and he spent a fair amount of time talking about circular polarized antennas, which, as I remember, are basically two Yagis set 90 degrees to each other with phasing lines. And so I would be interested in knowing whether that would actually help reception, at the AOS and LOS ends. And so you might be able to extend that window from 6 minutes to 8 minutes or so. So I haven't been curious enough to build one yet, but now that might motivate me.
But that does make an awful lot of sense. And I would think that if you did have a beam, a Yagi, that not only are you going to have to point it in the right direction, but you're probably going to rotate it around a little bit.
Oh boy, big time.
Well, and I think that was the whole notion of having the circular polarized, is that it's a pair of Yagis. And so no matter whether, the wave is horizontal or vertical as it's reaching you, one of the halves of the antenna is going to pick it up.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure what the what antenna they're using on this space station to transmit those images, whether it's circularly polarized or not.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll go back and look at. I'm pretty sure I saved those lecture, the Zoom from that lecture, and go back and see if he references that.
It would also be interesting to know what kind of wattage they are utilizing
yeah.
in order to broadcast it over the entirety of, the whole northern hemisphere, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I did some playing around in the early amateur satellite days and had Yagis for when they were, there's lots of TAM repeaters that are up there now. And that was quite interesting finding. So, some of them are low Earth orbit, like the space station, where you only get like 20-minute passes, but some of them are, they don't have any geosynchronized satellites yet, but they have some that have very elliptical orbits, so you get like 8 hours of coverage each day and stuff. That's fun to play with.
Oh, yeah.
Does anyone know if there's a date when you can have two-way communication? When someone on Earth can communicate with someone in this shuttle?
You can do that, I think, anytime that they come overhead, you have the proper apparatus. If they're broadcasting, you can respond, but I've tried numerous times and I don't have the correct antenna to do so, but uh, you can
Okay.
when you listen to them fly over the top of us, if you've got the right software package to know when it's optimal, you can hear people communicating with the space station.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, and they have a whole big program about communicating with schools.
Yes.
Yeah, but they, as Ray said, there's times when they're just
Inundated.
inundated, and also it's just when somebody gets a chance to get on the radio, so it's a
I stopped trying.
yeah, when you listen and you hear how many others are competing, and if you don't have a really good setup, you're kind of, it's tough.
It's a losing, and plus I'm inside this metal building of mine, so that doesn't, and I don't choose to go outside very often, so and try and do this. But it's still fun to listen to the communications though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Cliff.
Yay,
That was good.
Cliff.
That was great. And I put some information and Bruce did on the chat there in case you're want links and stuff. Let's see. Let me get us on track here. Oh my God. Hang on, this little screen. You make any change to Zoom and everything covers everything up. So let's go over what that was Cliff. Sorry, I didn't do that. The Great Shakeout, October 17th. This is kind of the overall numbers. The group that was the group in Tillamook County who was coordinating all this is called TC4, and it's some Tillamook County Committee number 4, and it's basically all the volunteer groups in Tillamook County that participate in this kind of organizing thing. Although you can independently, any organization can participate in and register for this. So if you look at if you go to the official Great Oregon Shakeout website, there were 6,000, almost 6,400 total registered participants, and the vast majority of those were the schools. So the kids, the schools register, and because they're going to do drills that day, and they cover they cover all the kids. For the rest of the community participating, um, the TC4 group kind of organized that, and there were 741 people organized for this one, and these are all the organizations that reported numbers. So it was last year was the first year that really anything was done outside of the schools, and so this year, there was a whole set of actions to get more participation, and it increased 39%. So everybody was pretty happy with that. So there was a pretty good sized radio component. There were 40 different locations that had radio people on them, so that they were primarily assembly areas, neighborhood gathering sites, or EOCs were the kind of major things. So 40 different areas in the locations in the county. 23 hams participated, and there were 36 GMRS users. So it was, people were pretty happy with the turnout. This was everybody was excited about it. So they got big plans for next year too, to improve. There was all sorts of improved communications and stuff that people wanted to see. So thank you for all you people that helped. That was you made it smooth, at least certainly in the EVC portion. So the action items that there was a debrief about, okay, well, what from a communication standpoint, what do you want to do differently? And there was a lot of people wanted ham exercises where you exchanged more information than just how many people participated. So they wanted to have a lot more information exchange, both directions, with the hams. Especially down south, they wanted more joint GMRS ham exercises because they really hadn't done much with that before outside of last year. And there was a suggestion that have a buddy, make sure there's always two radio people at each spot, and so you can have somebody be trained to do it. And also needed to verify the ham locations before the exercise. So a lot of people found that a lot of the communities found that the hams couldn't communicate with the EOC or EBO or the EOC, and they had to actually change and go to higher locations and stuff. So they wanted to vet those locations better next time. And then there's the issue of standardizing channels across the community, particularly with the GMRS, because there's only so many channels and only so many repeater channels, and so we wanted to make sure that the communication happens, or that we standardize those so we're not interfering so much with each other. And they were interested in doing pop-up or kind of snap drills where you say, okay, we're going to do a drill next Tuesday. It's going to be a half an hour, and just do a real quick, not a big investment in energy and stuff. They'd like to see more of those. So hopefully we'll be able to throw some of these things together. Any questions about Great Shakeout? Okay. So the next one was the IronOR exercise, which was a FEMA Region 10, which is kind of our area, Washington, Oregon, Idaho. this was a statewide Oregon one, that basically was a scenario of days number 5 through 7 after the earthquake. And each county got to choose their participation, how extensive it was. Multnomah County did a real big thing. Some of the Eastern Oregon counties did real things. Southern Oregon did some big stuff. Tillamook basically had 2 small things. One was a tabletop exercise that brought together kind of public service, fire, health together, and it was basically sitting around a table in the 911 center, and everybody kind of comparing, well, how would you handle this, and what do you need for this, and just, what are your plans for stuff? And it was actually a good exercise. It was really one of the first times that I've gotten together with a bunch of those people, and every single one of them mentioned the importance of Auxcom and ham radio and GMRS as that's going to be the way you communicate in this big one, even from day 5 to 7. So that was kind of encouraging. And then the second exercise was an EOC to EOC communications test that just looked at, the EOC in Tillamook, how could the various other EOCs in the county communicate with Tillamook, and also kind of the adjacent counties like Clatsop County and stuff. So the Siletz tribe emergency manager was kind of the coordinator for the whole thing, and put together the exercise and the ICS 205, the different frequencies and stuff we'd use. And we used UHF, VHF, and also HF voice and wind link. And the idea was that you had to send activation and deactivation messages and also situation reports. So that was kind of the play during the day. And there was I operated from the MOC, the police station, because that's where we've got the HF radio set up. And we were successful. We could communicate on 40 meters between Tillamook, Clatsop, all the EOCs at Tillamook, Clatsop, Umatilla, Depot Bay, and Siletz on 40 meters. So that actually worked pretty well. We tried 80 meters, but 80 meters was dead. So, but 40 was surprisingly good. HF WindLink was very good. I mean, we were able to connect to gateways on 40 meters, on 30 meters, and 20 meters. And Nevada, British Columbia, Washington. So there was really good connectivity to gateways kind of outside the tsunami or earthquake zone. And I think it's been a while since we had the HF WindLink station on the air, and so Bruce went ahead of time and made sure the laptop was updated and the radio was working and stuff. So that was good. Thank you, Bruce. He's left already, though. And then there used to be UHF VHF at the fire at the police station, but that equipment was pulled out when the police guys got concerned about security in the place. And so there's no permanent radio there right now. There's an antenna still on the tower, but it's not working for some unknown reason at this point. So I took over an SRG with the portable mast and everything, and used that for UHF VHF. The only problem is I didn't guide the mast like it should be.
Thank you, Colleen. I'm not.
That's Susan, can you mute? So the antenna blew over and broke. So midway through, it got a little bit, but it broke. So lesson learned there. But we did talk to the Siletz EOC on the Newport repeater, and we would have been able to talk to Tillamook and Clatsop on EBO, but I could only hear them with a handheld at that point. And the WinLink worked before the antenna blew over, but all the messaging to Salem and to Tillamook and stuff on all that worked on HF WinLink, so we didn't really need to use VHF WinLink. So it worked, but we didn't actually pass any traffic on it. So it was a successful exercise. Learned a bunch of stuff. Any questions on that? Okay, so this is on Saturday, the 23rd, they're having a Zoom meeting. This is the Cascade Amateur Radio Society is having a Zoom meeting where people get to show off their backup power solutions. And if you can kind of read this, it's like you get 3 to 5 minutes to like show your stuff. And it's for an hour and a half on Saturday the 23rd. And I've got when I put this presentation up on the website, if you click on this slide, it'll give you the Zoom information that you need to attend the meeting. So I was copied on that, and it sounds like an interesting thing to see what other people are doing for emergency power. So I thought I'd let everybody know about it. So that's it.
John, when do you think I guess it was a bond that passed for the improved emergency communications for Tillamook County? When do you think that'll start taking or going into effect, or anything start happening?
Boy, I don't remember.
Not either.
Yeah, I don't remember what that was. It's a while though.
Okay.
So, and it isn't clear yet specifically the impact to the various ham repeaters around. It seems like there's not any money specifically included to address improving the ham infrastructure. However, the fact that the buildings are going to get seismic improvements and their power and generators are getting improvements and stuff like that, we kind of will benefit from that indirectly, right, which will be good. And I believe that there'll probably be opportunities for us to upgrade equipment as we go, but I think it's a little early to. There wasn't any of that included in the bond funding, so
right.
Well, we'll have to see.
Since it's a property tax issue, they're not going to start collecting until next year's property tax.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a ways off.
Yeah. I think I've got the proposal that was originally the analysis that was originally done, and it was like 2009 or something like that. So this thing has been kicking around for years, and luckily it's been updated with the latest stuff. So it seems like they've done a good job with that. Let's see. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John.
And thank you,
Thank you.
Cliff.
Yes.
Hopefully let us know, everybody else, let us know if you can decode images with the space station. So, and thank you, Wayne. I got your new call. Let's see. Okay. Well, have a happy Turkey Day and Christmas, and we'll hopefully hear you on the nets.
See you next time.
See ya.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Cliff.